Funding for Off 90 is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.
Cruising your way next, Off 90. Some stars from the past shine in Winona. A glass-blowing artisan from Austin. A young documentary filmmaker. And Minnesota's biggest candy store. These stories and more are coming up on your next stop, Off 90. Hi, I'm Barbara Keith. Thanks for joining me on this trip, Off 90. Ben and Myrtle Huntley were vaudeville entertainers who lived for a time in Winona. They produced their own shows and performed on the road in the upper Midwest. Soon they discovered the newfangled medium known as motion pictures, which they thought would just be a short-lived fad. We visit the Winona County Historical Society to learn more.
Ben and Myrtle Huntley were vaudeville entertainers during the early 1900s and also were into early filmmaking. They traveled in Wisconsin, Iowa, and then of course Minnesota. And then ended up here in Winona, actually because of their son, Howard, who needed an education. My name is Jennifer Weaver. I am the museum educator at the Winona County Historical Society. The Huntleys were vaudeville performers. So vaudeville, you would say, was more like a variety show. And so there might be a singing act and then a musical number and then maybe a little skit. So kind of think Saturday Night Live. There was some humor. Myrtle would sing, Ben would play the piano and introduce different acts. And then each show was a little different because they would bring in other performers. Myrtle Huntley was born into the trade. Her family had the Brandon shows, which traveled Wisconsin, and so she grew up with it. I'm sure she had quite an exciting childhood, but she sang and performed even with her own family, and that's also how she met Ben. He came into the picture by being a pianist for her parents' shows, and so he played the piano, she sang, and they fell in love. Vaudeville performers were entertainment. This was prior to television, prior to radio even. If somebody wanted to hear a song or hear an instrument play, they had to hear it live. Ben and Myrtle Huntley made a lot of their own films. There are some great clips of them doing a fun little kind of road race caper and a car crash. And you'll see them out and about around town doing little film scenes with other actors involved as well. They were not part of Hollywood. However, there is a legend that the Huntleys introduced the idea of motion pictures to Carl Laemmle, who did found Universal Studios. So as legend goes, we don't have any proof of this, however it has been passed down, that the Huntleys met up with Carl and showed him this new amazing machine that made pictures move, and he loved it. The Huntleys thought the motion picture industry was just another fad. Myrtle Huntley loved to be in front of a camera, be it a still photo or a motion picture camera. She had flaming red hair, even though it's in black and white, and these gorgeous costumes that a lot of which she had a hand in designing and making as well. The red coat is a driving coat that she would wear in some of the scenes in the motion pictures with the driving scenes. And then there's a beautiful velvet green dress with really intricate beadwork around the neckline. She was very glamorous. Myrtle also posed for advertising for different businesses in Winona, so you'll see her dressed up for Watkins products in front of a vanity mirror, or you'll find her in the kitchen working with Wingold flour from Bay State Milling. Ben probably took all the photos of Myrtle. We don't know for sure, but he was the man behind the camera as well as the motion picture camera. So it is very, very likely he took all these photos as well as all the film footage. The Huntleys moved on from Winona in their retirement years to Black River Falls, Wisconsin. But they are buried in Winona at Woodlawn Cemetery, which is a beautiful cemetery. And so they are still here in Winona, and we can still visit them if we need to.
Peter Waldman discovered the magic of molten glass as a youngster. He became hooked when he got to college and saw that you could form it into all sorts of shapes, either by blowing or sculpting the glass. Peter's also a performer and enjoys blowing glass with a team, and sometimes in front of an audience.
When I'm at the Mower County Fair, let's say, I'm in my glory. I've got people watching, I'm entertaining them as well as entertaining myself, and it's a lot of fun. I'm Peter Waldman. I'm a glassblower and an entertainer. Now that's going to be our model for our object. We're going to make a balloon animal. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 8 o'clock and we are ready to rumble.
Ensuring that that doesn't get too cold and brittle. That's our concrete foundation.
My father is a biochemist and he had some tubing around, and I took a propane torch. I was a very naughty kid. And I took a little tube of glass and I got it hot on the end, and I blew it, and it made an enormous bubble, so thin that it burst, and it almost fell like snow. It was almost weightless. It was so thin. So when I got to college and I saw glass blowing, it was like, aha, this is amazing. I probably enjoy blowing glass for an audience more than I enjoy blowing glass by myself here. My grandparents were midgets in Vaudeville. My grandmother was 3'11". They were asked to be in The Wizard of Oz, and they declined because my grandfather was in school and my grandmother was pregnant with my uncle. Looking good.
He's now applying color to the surface of the glass. This is how we color our clear material.
I remember as a young kid looking into a marble and seeing the color swirl in there. I thought to myself, how did they get that in there? Here, put that back.
My favorite process. The small one. I also like to draw and paint.
Yeah, get the small one going. I wanted to use glass in a way that said something. I wanted to relay some large idea, something conceptual. And the idea of the galaxy is somewhere in that galaxy that I've made would be a little speck that would be our sun and our solar system. I like to put an array of galaxies up to give us the idea of space and the immenseness of space. I said, we need to make a clock out of glass. And he says, oh my gosh, couldn't exist. There's too many small, fine parts. I said, well, what kind of gears are in Big Ben? And I did a little research with another friend of mine. He found another set of plans that were digital, and we had them cut with a water jet. We had all the gears cut with a water jet. And I started making a glass clock. A clock does not tell time. A clock gives us a constant to judge time by. It's the spatialization of duration. The notion of a clock, I want it to be absolutely clear so that we could see it's just a mechanism. Time is something so much more, ephemeral and dynamic than just the idea of a clock. Oh, the Statue of Liberty, yes. I live in Brooklyn the past 25 years. For all those years, I stared at her, I looked at her every day. I lived right on the waterfront for a short time, and I kind of fell in love with her. I got a commission to make a Statue of Liberty, and I went down to Norfolk, Virginia, and worked with Julia Rogers and Robin Rogers and the team at the Chrysler Museum. Say I'm making the Statue of Liberty, I have every little detail to worry about, and it's very intense. And I'm sweating and everybody's hot, and we got to make sure everything goes right because there's no safety net. If we break a piece, we're done. We got to start over again. As a matter of fact, I had to make that piece twice. My parents have lived here for 35 years, and now that they're out of the barn, I can inhabit this space, and I couldn't afford to have this in New York. I hope to bring people in, have guest artists, teach people to blow glass, or have groups to come and have an experience. Pete's Glass Retreat, that's what I want to call it.
I'm Peter Piper, the Balloon Meister. I'm not a clown, I'm not a magician.
I'm the elastic expansion technician. I've been making balloons since I was 14, and it's always fun. I can always take out a balloon out of my pocket. I always have a handful of balloons, and I can make it for kids, and it's open doors, and it's so nice to have something like that and surprise people and make their day. It's its own reward to make a kid a balloon. I have a very serious side, like with the galaxies and the clock, and then I have a very whimsical side that is the clown, the balloon meister, and I like making fun things like piggy banks and poodles and things like that. It's very intense at times, and then I have times when I'm working by myself and I'm just making flowers or bowls or something simple, and I can get into a very mantric state and very, very Zen-like and enjoy the time alone.
Eric, the one closest to the reheating chamber, has the sculpture, and he's just keeping that at a temperature above 900 degrees.
It's a joy. It's the maker's delight.
Just a little bit more on the nose.
Okay.
And you bring out something, and it'll last a million years.
All right, flash them up and show them off.
Teagan Caylor is a student at a middle school and a member of a 4-H club. He's also a documentary filmmaker. He created a video based on his great-grandfather who helped build the Alaska Highway. When Teagan submitted his film to the Olmsted County Fair, he won a trip to the Minnesota State Fair, where he won Grand Champion.
For many years, the United States and Canadian government proposed a plan to build the road that would connect the countries. From mainland USA through Canada and up to the wild north of Alaska. Suddenly, during World War II, war in the Pacific struck. Once the Aleutian Islands were attacked, the US government began to develop concerns that Japan would also attack our northern borders of Alaska, creating vulnerability to our nation's safety. The US and Canadian governments could no longer stall this project and immediately placed the building of the Alaskan Highway as a top priority. I'm Teagan Caylor, and I made a video about my great-grandfather. His name is Oswald Marcus Myrie. In the 1940s, Oswald and my great-grandmother Ruby had started the beginnings of a small family in Spring Grove, Minnesota. My great-grandfather was assisting his father, Olaf, on the family's 40-acre farm. Eventually, he found work as a road crew foreman for my great-great-uncle Pete Halverson. I made a video for 4-H. I realized that my great-grandfather was a part of building this highway, so I thought that'd be a cool topic to make a video on. The Alaskan Highway is a highway, obviously, that connected Alaska, Canada, and then it went into the mainland of USA. So, in the spring of 1942, Oswald set off on a train ride from Winona to St. Paul, then further north to Canada. Once reaching Edmonton, Canada, Oswald rode to Ruby.
The train was so crowded last night, had to try sleeping sitting up. Figured on getting a room at a hotel, but hotels were all filled up. Guess we won't get any sleep. Feeling all right now, just feeling a little nervous. Oswald Myrie, 1942.
I thought it would be cool because my dad is a professional videographer. So another thing that inspired me to do this video was in my 6th grade history teacher had us do a project on looking back into our ancestors, and I kind of figured out and found this cool story that I never knew. I've been watching some of Ken Burns, and my dad's really into watching his documentaries, and it's a cool kind of way of making a documentary. So, upon their arrival, workers of the Alaskan Highway were met with unique conditions, native people, and hazardous wildlife. But the men went right to work. At the Olmsted County Fair, it's one-on-one judging with the judge. She watched it, she started crying a little bit, and she gave me a standing ovation, and she kept complimenting me. At first, I thought it was pretty weird because I didn't really realize why she was doing it, and then I thought it was pretty cool. In 7 months, 1,600 miles of road was laid. 200 bridges were constructed, and after 100,000 man-hours, the road was officially opened. Most men returned back to their homes, but Oswald remained.
I remained back to rebuild and fix the equipment to working order. This had to be done before the equipment could be loaded on trains back to the U.S. Story from Oswald Myrie.
At the State Fair's conference judging, we had 3 other people and then the judge, and we all showed each other our videos, and the judge kind of asked us questions, and then we had a critique on the other people's videos, and then watched the video, and then she complimented me, and she asked around for critiques that they would like to give me, and none of them really had a critique. So we were staying up in a hotel, and we kind of spent the day in the cities, and then we went home, and then we figured out that I had gotten a purple ribbon. The purple ribbon is the 4-H Award of Excellence. Often, the family stories of Oswald were about his great wit, years of farming, and ability to tell any joke. For me, my great-grandfather was a hidden hero for keeping this country's borders safe. His many months of constructing the Alaskan Highway were difficult, but when he returned home, he enjoyed the moments with his family and built a family legacy that we can all be proud of. I feel sometimes people just think 4-H is agriculture, but it has a whole other side to it of people being creative and having multiple talents.
If you've ever driven on 169 between Belle Plaine and Jordan, you've probably seen the big yellow barn. But did you know that the inside is full of a variety of sweet treats? The owners of Jim's Apple Farm call their business Minnesota's largest candy store, but you just might have to see it to believe it.
My daughter said, why don't we get a little bit of candy? So we got some candy and had one little table of candy, and the tables got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. This is actually the third store, and the first store was 6 sheets of plywood on the side of the road, a roadside stand. The third store is right here. We had one barn, and then we added on another barn, and another barn.
Sometimes customers come in and they'll have some kind of recommendation, something they've tried. And we will try to get some information about that soda. We'll look it up, we'll see if we can get it at a reasonable price and ship it here and see how it goes. Sometimes it's a dud, sometimes it's not. Hopefully we don't buy too much to find out it's a dud.
My husband and my son are really into the action heroes, Marvel and DC, and that's where we started with Gotham. Last year was our most recent addition. We put Frozen in. So who knows what we'll do next year.
We are open until the Sunday after Thanksgiving. It's the last day we're open, so come on out here, get a pumpkin, get a soda, get a pumpkin soda. We have that too. have fun.
We've reached the end of this tour off 90. Thanks for riding along. See you next time. But before we go, here's a walk among the flowers. Midsummer flowers indigenous to Minnesota.
Funding for Off 90 is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.